Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another check the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on a journey of 2 lifetimes. Yes, I'm looking at the back. I'm still going to mess it up. One of these times, I'm going to literally say Tails. Anyways, thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys doing great. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday after Mushoku Monday. Stick around before then. Hit that like button before you do anything. We're gonna stop right here. I'm not going to continue until you all hit the like button. But anyways, greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, all that stuff. It means a great deal to me. It keeps me going. You guys fuel me. The chat and everybody fuels me. But yes, I greatly appreciate everybody support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. Last week we had Nicholas with 50 gifted subs and a super thank you for raining those emotes on everybody. Greatly appreciate that. Inferno Torch with a gifted membership. Thank you. And Royce Moist with a super. You guys are amazing. But yes, with all that said, let's just dive into it. These ones, I have to admit, these next few stories, I didn't really find anything like super crazy in them. They feel like a lot of it's just like goofy stuff. But I'm hoping that, as per usual, once we finally start digging into it on the Mushoku Monday, I find something in there that I kind of miss as I'm doing like pre-edits and stuff like that. But let's just dive right into it. We have our first one, which is Old Enough. Rius and his companions began their adventure career in the town of Rikarisu in the Demon Continent. They teamed up with Jalil and Viskel to allow themselves to climb the ranks and save money. Having cash to spare meant they were well equipped. Once they reached C rank, they would set off and continue their journey home. That was what they were thinking when this episode took place. Eris was doing her upkeep on her gear. She had a newly purchased breastplate, a hood with ears on it, and a sword given to her by the Miggards. Eris was, as a rule, a messy girl. Yep. She couldn't keep her room tidy, and she didn't even fold her clothes. But she didn't slack off when it came to maintaining her gear, even when her gear wasn't dirty. It was partly because Rizard told her she should, but mostly because she liked her weapon and armor. Just looking at them set her heart racing. Each made her imagine an epic adventure. They excited her so much that she even forgot about the displacement incident. She would have taken a sword and armor over a pretty dress every day. Of course, if she was back home, she wouldn't have kept on it for long. Just doing upkeep on her weapons wasn't enough to keep her heart racing on its own. Eris would have gotten sick of it after a few days and gone looking for something else. Yeah, that's sort of the impression that I got when Eris and them were all journeying across the Demon Continent, Mills Continent, Central Continent, was just, this girl was waiting for this day. This girl was waiting for this. I mean, that was the whole thing around Millis, was she just wanted to do a goblin slaying quest. Oh, there's a goblin slaying quest. I gotta do this. It's like it's on my little bucket list of things that I have to do when I become adventurer is kill goblins. It's fun stuff. And I agree that since that this is only really kicking her because she's in the now. Now that she's finally out there, this is what's expected of an adventure. You have to keep the stuff, probably something that Ghislaine instilled upon her. That is something that you do on a regular basis to keep your stuff going. And now you have Rizard basically saying, do this, do you understand? And suddenly it's something that she keeps on like crazy. But this is the Demon Continent. They spent every day taking quests and fighting monsters to sell their hides. And occasionally, they got into fights with other adventurers. No, Eris, you did. You did, Eris. You did, Eris. She used her gear daily, and that meant that she settled into a daily routine of upkeep. That day, she was going over her gear with a self-satisfied smirk. She polished her breastplate, beat dust off her cloak, and painstakingly wiped down her sword with an oiled rag. Huh? She realized her bottle of oil was empty. There had been so much of it when she bought it, but after cleaning daily, she ran out. Radius, I'm out of oil. We gotta go get some more. She declared this, not bothering to ask what he wanted. But when she looked up, the room of the inn was empty. Rurius wasn't there, and neither was Rizard. Where'd they go? Toilet? She racked her brain. Then a memory hit her. While she was polishing her armor, Rudius and Rizard had gone out on errands. That's right. They said they were going out. But where'd they go? They definitely said where they were going and how long they'd be out, but Eris couldn't remember the particulars. She wasn't the sort of girl that got hung up on details. Funny enough, I know this is a massive aside here, but this was sort of something that I would hope that over time of the series, she sort of got over. There is sort of that element where it's a funny, it's an archetype. Eris is an archetype. She's a tsundere archetype. And yes, Refugin is really good at taking archetypes, but then kind of twisting them in a way they make sense to a character and everything. I think they did that very well with a lot of the characters. But I was kind of hoping at some point the whole muscle for brain thing would kind of get grown out of with Eris's character. But she didn't really. She's kind of found her way of kind of molding her personality and how she thinks into the family, which I think in and itself is a good thing. It's the idea of that not necessarily changing her as a person, but rather her finding ways to adapt. And that was really a lot of the travel all the way across all the continents was just, yes, from Ruius's perspective, most of the time we got was this girl's kind of chilling out. She's always violent, but now she's kind of chilling out a little bit. But from her perspective, it's that fear of being left behind because of her innate nature. I do this and I realize that's going to make him leave me behind. Please don't leave me behind. Please don't leave me behind. Please. But again, I was kind of hoping the muscle for brains would kind of go away. Have her actually grow as a person and mature. She does in her own way, though. Don't get me wrong. She wasn't the sort of girl to get hung up on details, and that had her in a bit of a fix. Eris wanted to clean her weapon right now. It wasn't a sense of obligation, but she didn't like doing things halfway. Plus, she wanted to wipe away the tarnish on her blade so she could bask in its gleam. But she'd run into a lot of obstacles if she went out. First off, she didn't speak the language here. She could sort of understand basic greetings now, but difficult negotiations was out of the question. Then, there was a problem with money. Yeah, that was sort of one of my favorite moments in the entire series, is having her asking Roxy how to speak the language. And again, that was all to do with the fact that she wanted to be able to talk with Rajerd. And I was like, oh, she wants to talk to Rajerd in his language. Wait, I got money. Ruiz had given her some money in case of emergencies. She kept it hidden in her underwear so that pickpockets wouldn't get at it. I was going to make a comment here, but it's just too lewd. Some pickpockets know where to find it. She rummaged around her panties, pulling out a purse, and checked the contents. She wasn't sure how much money was worth here, but she remembered how many coins and notes her cleaning oil cost the last time. I thought she was going to end up like using a larger amount, like Austrian coin or something like that. The money she had should be enough. Ruiz had said the money should be used in a crisis, but Eris had clearly forgotten that. Besides, even if she remembered, she probably would have thought this fit the bill. This is an emergency, Ruiz. Finally, there was the way there, but she'd been a few times, so she'd be fine. She had the money, knew the way, and while told not to wander, that had flown out of her mind as well, so that was okay too. In other words, everything a-okay. I think I'll be just fine. Eris put her sword into her scabbard and leapt to her feet. Gonna get in trouble. A few minutes later, she was trotting along the streets of Rikarisu in high spirits. She was so cheerful, you could practically hear someone humming a happy tune. She was going shopping by herself. Well, with one thing and another, she'd never been allowed to when she was living in the citadel of Roa. But now her chance had come in an unexpected form. She was so excited, she wanted to run down the streets. But even Eris understood their current predicament. They'd been transported to the Demon Continent, and there was a lot that they had to do if they wanted to get home. She didn't have time to play around. She'd buy what she needed without getting distracted along the way, then go straight home. Again, another sign here that from the very beginning, she knew what was going on. And again, it kind of gave that sense that this girl is not really getting a sense of the travesty that happened. And Rudius was trying to handle everything. But then finally, there was that one moment where she showed that vulnerability. And so she strode straight down the street towards the armorer's shop. She walked without hesitation, taking the shortest route from the inn. Everything about her said that she knew what she was doing, but her confidence was a bluff. If Rudius had been tailing her, he would have realized that this is not the shortest route. She was one street off. There was more than one way to get to the armor, of course. So Eris still had a decent chance of getting there to her destination. It's one of those things where, yeah, technically, all these routes go to where this is at, and hopefully she maybe looks to the left right when she comes to this point. It wasn't like she had no sense of direction, and she'd walked along these streets multiple times before. If she stopped along the way, cocked her head, and said, "Hold on," she'd realize her mistake. With her walking along in high spirits, it was doubtful that she stopped and questioned this, but all else was going well. She'd catch on eventually. "Hey, Eris!" Of course, it's always times like this that trouble crops up. 3 demons stood in her path. There was Kurt, a boy with sharp eyes, a single horn protruding from his forehead, Gablin, a nimble-looking boy with a bird's head, and Bashiro, with a body like boulder and 4 arms. It was the Takurabu village toughs. Haven't heard from them in a long time. "Oh, you're on your own? That's rare. What happened? Isn't Rudius with you today?" "You won't get any answers out of Eris, Kurt. She doesn't speak our language." "Yeah, let's get out of here before she punches us again." "We can't do that. What if she got separated from Rudius and she's lost?" That's such a good boy. Kurt's such a good boy. Kurt's such a good boy. I don't think they ever ran into him again, did they? I want to say they referenced him at some point. Maybe it's when he went back there, way late to look for Kishirika. I don't think so, though. We ought to at least tell her where to go. The Takaraku village toughs don't ignore people in trouble. We don't even know if she's in trouble, though. While the 3 talked in demon tongue, Eris frowned. She didn't understand demon tongue, so she didn't know what they were saying. But she recognized one word, Eris, her own name. After they come up to her, now they were muttering amongst themselves. Eris had experienced this back at the school that she briefly attended in Roa. It was what you called talking behind someone's back. Ugh. Like random trauma picking up. They made sure that you knew that they were talking about you. They said nasty things about you, either making sure you didn't hear them or making a show of it to ensure you did hear. Eris hated that. There weren't many people that enjoyed having mean things whispered about them. Eris had learned from her grandfather that when you had something to say, you said it loud and clear. Saros made sure that she knew that if he had something to say, Eris, you say it loud and clear. Oh man, dude, stop bringing up Saros. Freaking Refusion, stop bringing up Saros. That being said, Eris didn't know what to do when people insulted her to her face either. She wasn't good at fighting with words. Her opponent immediately shut her down with logic, leaving her nothing to say back. Eris clenched her fists. Oh no, she looks angry. She looks angry. Let's go already, Kurt. Right. The three demons quickly backed up at the sight of her fist. The memory of how they had beaten her black and blue the other day was deeply etched in their minds. Healing magic repaired their physical wounds, but it couldn't fix the psychological ones. Oh, okay, we're going. You'll get to the end if you go straight down the street. In, you understand? In, right? With that, Gablin and Bachiro dragged Kurt in the direction of the Adventure Guild and out of sight. She huffed through her nose as she watched them go, but she didn't give chase and beat them up. She was a bit more mellow these days. Anyways, after that unexpected interruption, she just wanted to buy her oil and get back to the inn. Yeah, this is sort of the sad reality of the mindset of Eris. Yes, going back to before Ruius really became a part of her life, she doesn't really have much experience in the public. A good experience, anyways. Yes, Saros would take her out maybe now and then, but probably not having much interaction with the public. You have the parties that she might go to, but probably that's all nobility, very kind of, secured, and she probably not interacting much. Her only real, out of the bounds of, having Saros or Philip at her side or a guard at her side and interacting with people on a limited basis, it's going to be mostly just at school where they're not there with her. And in that scenario, similar to with Paul Gaiden, wasn't a good experience. She did not have a good experience at school, and she was very vicious. And that probably snowballed a lot of her experience there to people not interacting with her very positively. So she doesn't like being in public and being around people. Ruius now with her is showing her that some people outside of her family can be good. But then she gets transported over here, and it's like out of nowhere, speedrun time. It's time to rush to maturing because now you don't want to get left behind. It's time to shape up. And so she doesn't have a good experience just randomly interacting with people in public. And so she's going to immediately assume, okay, they're talking about me. I don't quite understand exactly what they're saying. So where I'm getting at is I'm almost feeling like this is equating it to her experience with people whispering about her. What she's saying there is that, yes, sometimes they make sure that you hear. Oh, that's Eris over there. I heard she's super violent. Oh, how unrefined. Yeah, she hears it. She knows exactly what they're saying. But this is more equated to the other example she gave, where they whisper so you can't hear it, but she knows they're talking about her. It's the same thing as here. She heard Eris, but the rest is just the whispers. The rest is in a language that she can't hear, similar to the language of whispering, where you can't hear what they're saying or understand what they're saying. That's what I'm getting right there. And so she immediately thinks about those girls or whatever whispering about her, and she can't understand what they're saying. She gets angry. It's triggering that memory in her mind of those days at school where she couldn't hear what they're saying, but she knew damn well they were talking about her. She's angry. It's not that Kurt's a bad guy. Kurt's a good boy. Kurt's a good boy. Just not in this scenario. It's just not going to work out in his favor. Poor guy's trying to help. He's like, get out of here. We got to go, dude. We got to go. Get out of here. It just gets you mad. It's sad. It's sad. Poor Kurt trying to help her out, but he's too afraid of getting kicked in the nards again. Anyways, after that unexpected interruption, she was thinking she wanted to get a move on when something caught her eye. It was an alleyway. According to the map in her head, the armorer was in the exact same direction it led. This should be shorter. Without hesitation, she headed into the alleyway. Needless to say, it didn't lead to the armorer. The GPS system on her back going, turn around, turn around, turn around. Find a place to turn around. Eris walked deeper into the dimly lit back streets. She veered way off course, but she never doubted that she was heading to her goal. Unlike Rudius, she didn't doubt herself. She kept walking, progressing further and further into the rougher part of town. A pig-faced demon gambled on the side of the street, while a lizard-faced demon asked with glittering eyes if she had any valuables on her. Eris looked very out of place. The thing is, even if she was as vicious as any of the folks around her on the inside, she still looked like a little girl. She stood out like an orange life preserver, bobbling on the ocean. And so, of course, the sharks that saw anything floating on the surface as a meal started closing in. "Hey, little girl, the road's closed." One of these was a demon with a face like a fox. "If you want to pass, you better get your wallet out." There was a big scar on his face, and you could tell that he was tough. An ordinary person would have taken one look at his face, known he was dangerous, and pulled out their wallet. Or at least anyone who lived on the demon continent would have. But Eris couldn't even tell demons apart, let alone whether they were tough or not. The way she saw it, a rude foxman just showed up and blocked the street. And she didn't understand what he said either. She did understand one thing, though. The fox had a sneering grin on his face, and he was making fun of her. Eris only had one way of dealing with louts like him. "Now, if I like what I find in your wallet, I might let you..." Ugh. Eris hit him with a heavy blow. The foxman, who assumed that she was either scared or intimidated, hadn't expected her to throw a punch without a word. Eris's fist came at him faster than he could imagine and buried itself deep in his gut. He doubled over, clutching his stomach. This naturally meant he lowered his head. To Eris, this meant it was easier to punch. She took him on the chin with a hook that knocked him out. "Hey, little girl." Eris looked down at the foxman. His ragged clothes and the other end of the street he'd been blocking sparked a recollection. She realized she was heading in the direction of the place she had once gone looking for a pet. In other words, she'd taken a wrong turn. I guess this would be what they were talking about earlier, the moment that she would crock her head and say, "Hold on. This isn't right." Realizing her mistake, she turned around. The direction she set off to wasn't quite the direction she'd come from, but by happy chance, it was the road that led to the armorer. Rudius, if he had been there, would have thanked the foxman for showing her the right way. No, scratch that. He wouldn't have gone that far. In any case, Eris set off without hesitation. No, I think he would be apologizing to him. Rudius would totally sit there and apologize to him. At last, she had found the armorer. If she had a GPS tracker, it would have shown her going an extremely roundabout way. But Eris had no notion of having been lost. It didn't count as being lost if you got to where you were going without ever feeling like you had lost your way. True? When she entered the shop, all sorts of things threatened to grab her attention, but she suppressed the urge. She took the bottle of cleaning oil from where it sat beside the weapons, then banged 2 scrap iron coins down on the counter where the shopkeeper sat. "I'll take this." "Thanks." She had successfully completed her shopping. Well done, Eris. But she couldn't relax yet. The shopping wasn't over until she got back to the inn. "Ah, there she is." It is said that what goes around comes around. Do a bad thing, and something bad will come back to bite you. Eris was going to exit the armorer's shop, only to find 5 men standing in front of her. "You got some nerve pulling that stunt back there." One of them was a foxman with a scar on his face. That's right, he had regained consciousness and came here for revenge. Eris, of course, didn't remember him. "Who are you?" The only time that she remembered faces of people that she encountered on the side of the road was when they humiliated her. Still, she knew they were extremely hostile. "We're going to take you down a peg before you start thinking too much of yourself." The corners of her mouth turned down, and she backed up. She didn't bother to think about why she was surrounded. That was just what ruffians did. And even she thought that going out alone might lead her to run into kidnapper types. On top of that, these were precisely the sorts of opponents her training prepped her for. "Out of my way!" Reese told her that she'd try to do her best not to stir up commotions, so she gave them a warning. If it were up to her, she would have attacked before they got a word in. But this time, she followed Reese's instructions. Eris had gotten smarter. As a side note, Eris didn't think punching the foxman earlier counted as a commotion. That had been more like saying hello. I thought the same thing when I read that. I'm like, she technically punched. Oh, okay, there you go. There's a note. It's like, just a side note. Anyways, she gave them a warning, but they were demons. They didn't speak human language. And even if she did say it in a language that they understood, they were too worked up for her warning to stop them. Eris's shout ended up setting off the fight. "Take this." The foxman charged at her like he was determined to get the first punch in. Ha! Even with the opponent twice her size, barreling towards her, Eris wasn't scared. She blocked his punch, drove her fist deep into his gut. Then the moment he leaned forward, she clocked his jaw with a hook. Same as before. It was her favorite combo. The old 1-2 punch. But there was still 4 more. She was still surrounded. Or, so you might have thought. The other 4 didn't attack. Why? Because Eris was standing just outside the entrance of the shop. With a door in the way, the other 4 couldn't attack her. This was no coincidence. When Eris was being surrounded before, she deliberately took a step back to get into this position. That said, her current position wasn't purely advantageous. Being there put her at a disadvantage too. She hadn't been able to put enough force into her hook to knock the foxman out. As she toppled forward, he reached out and grabbed her ankle. Little brat. Get her, boys. Eris kicked him in the face, but it wasn't enough to make him let go. And while the entrance was narrow, in the end, it only limited the number of people that could attack at once. If they used their numbers, it wouldn't be hard for them to pile onto her. Eris clicked her tongue, then, feeling a bit desperate, looked outside. The wind seemed to go out of her sails. At the same time, she stopped kicking, giving the fox-faced man a moment to glance behind him. Dismay clouded his face. You kidding me? There was only one person standing outside the armorer's shop. He knew immediately who this is. He immediately knew who this was. The 4 others with the fox-faced man were lying in the dirt twitching. They were out cold. Foxface didn't know the person that was standing there, but Eris knew him very well. He had dappled, bluish hair and carried a white spear, and was glaring down at the fox-face as the demon lay there on his belly. Richard. The man, Richard, let out a sigh of relief. I was worried when you weren't at the inn. I kind of ran out of oil, so I came to buy some more. At least leave a note. No. No, don't do that. Don't do that ever. No, Eris is, no. Now we know why she left the note that one time. Well, Richard once told me that I should leave notes behind because, yeah, Rufujin totally did this on purpose. Rufujin totally put this in her on purpose. He knew that all the people that read this are going to go, no, that doesn't end well. Don't leave notes, Eris. Never leave notes behind. I'll do that next time. No, don't do it. No, Eris, don't listen to him. The foxman's grip had slackened, so she shook him off, then walked out of the shop, stomping on his face as she went. How do you know I'd be here? The Takarobo village toughs. They were at the inn when I returned, and they told me you were lost. I guessed from their story that this was where you were heading, and I was right. How rude. I wasn't lost. I'm glad you showed up, though. These guys pick a fight with me for some reason. So I saw. The 2 of them strolled serenely away, leaving the 4 thugs twitching on the ground, and the fox face, with his mouth hanging wide open as he tried to work out what just happened. What had gone around had come around. This was the price of blackmail. That's what he was talking about. And so Eris made it back safely to the inn. With Richard at her side, she made no wrong turns. All that was left to do was take care of her sword. Oh, this is bad. This is bad. Eris was greeted by the sight of Rudius pacing anxiously around the room in a flap. What's wrong? At this, Rudius looked anguish and threw his arms around her legs. Eris, listen, when I came back to the inn, it was deserted. Eris should be here, but I can't find her anywhere. I'll leave a note next time. No, Eris, no, don't leave notes. What should I do? She might have been kidnapped while I was out. Wait, or it might be a plot by one of my enemies. Damn it. Oh, please, don't let any harm come to her. Reese went on saying things that Eris couldn't make heads or tails of. His eyes were unfocused and rolling around with fear. When he returned to the inn and found Eris gone, he panicked. He panicked so badly, his hands snaked around Eris's back and stroked her butt. Eris, come help me look for Eris. Eris had no words for Rudius in this state, but she knew what to do when he touched her butt. Come down! Ugh! Rudius' piteous cry echoed through the inn, and he fell to the ground twitching. But there was a smile on his face. We're going way back to way earlier Rudius. Way bad Rudius. Technically never changed. What am I talking about? Never changed. He was satisfied, for he had stroked Eris's butt and enjoyed every second. Eris looked down at his dopey grin and promised herself next time, when she went out by herself. This is no lie. This is definitely on purpose. She would definitely leave a note. That's literally this entire short story. Everything else is inconsequential to this. The only purpose of this entire short story is to say why she leaves a note later. That screws up everything. How different the story would have gone if she just left a proper note. Short story, The Demon World's Great Emperor's Super Adult Love Story. What is this title? The Demon World Great Emperor's Super Adult Love Story. In the back street of a certain town, somewhere on the Demon Continent, a girl lay sprawled on the ground. She was wearing what looked like bondage gear, and 2 horns protruded from her purple hair. One of her hands reached up into the air, only to drop listlessly back to the ground. So this is it. The last of her strength was almost gone. What is with this entire... It feels like at least half of these stories is somebody starving. This should be called a journey of starvation. Mushoku Tensei, a journey of starvations. We had Ghislaine, Philip, and now Kishirika. 3 of these stories have been starving stories. And then Eris showed up, and then a shadow appeared above Kishirika, and it was Eris. We'll do that joke again.
Lo, the demon world's greatest emperor spurneth not the earth, given as she strives for the heavens. Heh, that sounds pretty cool. Maybe I'll put it out for the next time a champion beats me.
Her name was Kishirika Kishirishu, the demon world's greatest emperor, the evil despot who, in an age long past, had dominated the demons and led the demon kings in a war against the humans. Of course, now she was just a wanderer without any followers or even a place to live. She didn't even have anything to eat.
I'm starving.
That's right, she had collapsed from hunger. She was the demon world's greatest emperor, which meant she could go a year without food and keep functioning just fine. But she was also an airhead, which meant that she was dumb enough to forget that she needed to eat something at least once a year. By the time that she noticed she was hungry, it was too late. Gone were her power to soar through the sky and energy to cackle. She had joined the ranks of the pitiful homeless.
The sky's blue. I like it better when it's more purpley. But for some reason, now I'm about to die. Blue seems to fit better.
Just because she collapsed from hunger didn't mean she died straight away. She could still appreciate the color of the sky. After all, she found herself on death's door like this every other day. On the other hand, she no longer had the strength to do anything but appreciate the color of the sky. A shadow fell over her face.
Grandpa, can I keep her?
Sorry, I wanted to use the joke again. Someone was peering down at her as she lay on the ground. It was a boy with a single horn on his forehead. I was trying to figure out who this is, and I can't really think of anybody. All I can think of is it may be in reference to... She's going to get into a story about the fight with Aldebaran, the second great human demon war. I can't think of anybody that was directly involved with Kishirika that would have been after the second great human demon war. So that kind of just leaves anybody that Rurius may have encountered that had a single horn that was a child at this time, which would have been pretty recent. That had a demon eye. That had a demon eye specifically. I don't know, and it's got to be something that's going to come up later, possibly. His age was probably in the single digits, and on the low end at that. He was at the age when you really couldn't tell how aware he was of the world around him. Kishirika looked around, wondering where he'd come from, and saw the back door to a house facing onto the alleyway. He must have come out of it.
What do you want, boy? If you've come to rob me blind, I must disappoint you, for I am penniless. Or are you some species of death god? Come for me at last. What's wrong? Are you okay? Does your tummy hurt?
Instead of answering Kishirika's question, the boy just looked at her with worry in his eyes. His eyes were pure, and there was no ill will in his voice. So Kishirika answered him honestly.
The truth is, I'm very hungry. I can't even move. Oh,
the boy exclaimed happily. Then he ran back into the house.
So, he was only taunting me. Huh?
Kishirika cried out as she saw the boy come back out already. And what was more, he held a bowl of soup. Aw, good boy.
Are you going to give me that? Or perhaps you mean to sit in front of me and eat it slowly? If so, you are truly cruel. It's for you.
Kishirika jumped up. They say that when people are at their limits, hope can lend them new reserves of strength. But Kishirika wasn't just people. She was the demon world's greatest emperor. When things went her way, it gave her the strength of 100 men. After taking the bowl from the boy, Kishirika put away the contents with terrific speed. It was a meager soup, thickened with flour or something, with a few wilted leaves floating in it. But Kishirika was so starved that it seemed like the best thing she had ever tasted.
Pfwa, the way simple flavors fill you up. The only word for it is delicious.
With energy in her stomach, Kishirika stood up. Her hair went from dry to shiny, her skin from shriveled to its original youthful firmness. She used the marvelous absorption power of the great demon world's emperor to instantly convert the calories into energy. I would say there's a bunch of bullcrap, but it seems like it's actually happening.
The demon world's greatest emperor, Kishirika, rises again.
After this ringing proclamation, Kishirika looked down at the boy to ask for another helping.
You did a great service in bringing me this substance, but that portion was just a tiny bit.
Kishirika trailed off. The boy beside her, with his mouth hanging open, was a small child, and it was obvious from the rags that he was wearing that he was poor. He looked as though he'd gone days without food. Kishirika was not clever. Still, she managed to work out this boy had given her some of his own precious lunch. Kishirika hungered after power, but she was also just plain hungry. She knew what an empty belly felt like. She still wasn't full, but she didn't ask the boy for more. If she wasn't getting a refill, there was only one thing to say next.
I have received thy sacrifice. A boon I shall grant thee.
It was Kishirika's time-honored custom to reward people who gave her food.
What's a boon? A boon, boy. Is there something you want? Can it be anything? Anything at all.
She said that, but she didn't really have much to give. She didn't have any money. As far as reputation, she was as good as homeless. And whatever her rank might be, she didn't even have anywhere to live. But she did have something that she was born with, the demon eyes. She had the power to grant demon eyes. It was a power so great that it once brought her within inches of bringing the world under her domination. The demon eyes were synonymous to the demon world's greatest emperor. It's funny that we've gone this long with this. I've never really actually questioned it, but at the same time, it's never really answered it. It's like that aspect. It's like, what declared her to be the world's greatest emperor? What declared her to have these demon eyes? How many does she have to give? I think it said at some point all the different eyes, but I'm not sure if it said how many or if it's like limitless. I would assume that it's limitless because she's been giving them out for a long time.
Don't be modest. Say what you want. Come on.
Kishirika urged, grinning as the boy hesitated, pink with shyness.
Okay.
The boy plucked up his courage.
Please, be my bride. Your bride? Boy, what do you want a bride for at your age? Ay. Kids are so precious these days.
Seeing Kishirika's expression, the boy's face fell.
No bride?
He was so sweet that she wanted to blurt out that of course it's okay. But Kishirika was the type to clearly say what she thought.
No, I'm afraid I have a fiancé. I cannot marry you, boy. Oh, is there something else you want? Here, how about a beautiful item that is oh so handy and starts with a D? Know that one? No, I want a bride.
Perhaps he would have wanted a demon eye if he had been about 10 years older. Demon eyes were tricky to master, but worth the effort. But right now, the boy didn't even know what a demon eye was, and he couldn't ask for something he didn't know. Again, that goes in that whole question of like who this kid is, because like he's so obsessed with the idea of having a bride, and why is he so obsessed with that concept? And it makes me think that that's actually going to come up with his story. And it feels so stupid if somebody's like, it's this character, Andrew, dummy. By the way, chat, if it's not been talked about yet, I don't need the answer to who it is. It's so great to finally get back to this whole thing where I'm saying question marks, and then like the chat's probably wanting to answer.
Tricky one that. Not that I object to being asked. It's just...
Kishirika looked down at the boy, frowning. Then an idea struck her.
I've got it. Why don't I tell you the story about how I met my fiancé? Once you heard it, you'll give up on me. A story? That's right. A spectacular epic. Full of frills and excitement. Guaranteed to get an audience cheering. Tell me the story. Very well, then.
And so, Kishirika began her tale. It happened 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4,000 years ago. This girl can't get her years straight. Kishirika was on fire back then, kicking around with her entourage of demon kings. She used the riches she had stolen when she attacked the humans to throw parades every other day. She gathered up all the handsome guys in the land and had them wait on her hand and foot. She doodled on the faces of sleeping demon kings, sent letters to the human kings that went bald due to stress. Whatever took her fancy, she did it. Not only that, but back when she ruled, she wasn't a half-baked pipsqueak she was now. No, she was the embodiment of perfect beauty. Yeah, I've always kind of wanted that to pop up at some point. Like, even back when Rudius had run into a statue of her, it's like, can we have at least shown it? Like, I really want to see this. Hopefully, one of these volumes will end up having some story of showing that, or a picture at least. An illustration, hopefully. The tributes poured in every day from adoring demon kings and other famous demons all around. Due to that, her belly was always full. Truly, she was invincible. Days of old, stepping on men, having everything. But while she was reveling in being an emperor, there was those that came to spoil it. Humans. Well, I mean, you just talked about all the bad stuff you did to the humans. Of course, given that she was invading them, that wasn't a surprise. Now, apart from a select few, all humans were weak. Small fries. The lot of them. Occasionally, you get the real tough one. But only once every 1,000 years or so. So, she didn't lose much sleep over it. Problem was, once in 1,000 years meant that you would eventually get one. Kishirika calls them champions. Back in the First War, she got done in by a crazy guy with all types of weird hangups. Kept saying things like the sky had to be blue. But that's beside the point. That's interesting because it says in the first war, she got stopped by Ars, wasn't it? I thought it was Ars that took her out in the first one. It says this champion was called Golden Knight Aldebaran. Aldebaran was a second war. It says the first war, I got taken down by a champion. It was the Golden Knight Aldebaran, which would have been the second war. Because the first war, Ars, second war, Aldebaran, and then Laplace War. That's the three major ones that they always bring up. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading that wrong. The great champion who single-handedly rebuilt the humans' battle lines and crushed the demons' armies. Back then, Kishirika could have cared less about a chump like him. You'd be crazy to worry all the time about someone who might or might not show up every 1,000 years. Most of the time, when everyone gets worked up over some once-in-a-thousand-year warrior, another Demon King takes care of them. I don't know if that's implying the idea that if a Demon King sits there and worries about a warrior over and over and over again, another Demon King will take them out. Like it's referencing somebody. Or if it's the idea that with everybody worrying about it, eventually one of the Demon Kings will handle it. Handle the champion. I don't know. It sounds weird. In truth, Kishirika's followers came to her a few times with reports like, the champion's in major trouble. Needs to be dealt with right now. But she thought she'd be all right. No big deal. It was not all right, though. Before she knew it, her army was in ruins, and Aldebaran invaded her castle. That's when she got a first look at him, and she could tell just by looking at him that he was super-duper bad news. He had streaky, silver hair and eyes with no emotion in them, like an insect's, and his whole body radiated a sinister aura. He didn't look murderous, but she could tell he'd kill her anyways, and he was strong. That's interesting. I, for some reason, had it in my head that she knew who that was. She knew Laplace. Here, with the fact that she's describing it like this and not naming him, not saying, like, I realized at that point it wasn't this Aldebaran guy, it was Laplace. I would assume over her many years of being alive, she met him at some point, because they implied the idea that the demons knew the demon dragon god, that they have met Laplace, or at least they tell the kids, don't ruffle his feathers, basically. He didn't look murderous, but she could tell that he'd kill her anyways, and he was strong. Now that he invaded her castle, the warriors protecting her attacked him. This was her personal guard, so there were some of the finest demons around. He tore them up and tossed them aside like cotton candy. Seeing that, a mighty demon king stepped in. He was always boasting about his strength, but Aldebaran obliterated him with one hit. I wonder if that's the guardian that was guarding the armor down there. Obliterated, total insanity. Despite being called the Golden Knight, there wasn't a scrap of gold on him. No wonder her servants had come to her, wailing about him all those times. As she faced the monster, she was shaking so badly that she couldn't do anything. When you realize that you are going to die, no matter what you do, your body freezes up. That's what real fear tastes like. He didn't look like the listening type, so she couldn't even beg for her life. All she could do was pray. She didn't have one god in particular in mind. She just sent off prayers to a power that was higher than this guy. Nothing would hear her, though. She knew she was going to die. The other interesting thing that I noticed with this part, a lot of the speculation that I had around this whole incident right here was that he wasn't there to attack her. That he was possibly just there to talk to her. And that when Bodyguardy showed up, being tricked by the man god, he was showing up there in a maddened state, and that he viewed it as this was attacking Kishirika. I need to kill this thing. He's here after Kishirika. I think it even implied at some point that he had wounded Kishirika. That's the other thing there. Am I wrong? I seem to remember that it said that he had wounded her. And again, my whole mindset there was that was the armor making him go mad, and he just envisioned this was happening, and that it wasn't that case. Him attacking Aldebaran while they were possibly just talking is what triggered the fight. Bodyguardy triggered it with the armor maddening him. This is implying no. Laplace was after her. Laplace was there to kill her, and then Bodyguardy showed up. So the man god technically wasn't fully tricking him, because it indeed happened. Yeah, it says, I made it, he thought. The woman he adored was still alive. She had fought. She was beaten to the cusp of death. But she was alive. Who was it that she fought against? This may be difficult to explain, but it's not actually Aldebaran who stood opposing her. In a certain sense, the opponent was the same as Aldebaran, but not exactly. You see, the human known as Aldebaran, the Golden Knight, who appeared in the initial battle that changed everything, was already dead at this point. The enemy who stood against them was demon god Laplace, demonic dragon god Laplace, if you want his full title. Our protagonist knew of him. Dragon god Laplace lived a secluded life in the distant mountains, only occasionally descending to the village below to teach people martial arts. He was a mild-mannered individual, whom the immortal demons had long warned their children and their children's children not to contradict. That was really all the man knew about Laplace. But he knew what he looked like. So even Body Gotti knew what he looked like. But yet, Kishirika didn't know who he was, or at least didn't name him. This Laplace was trying to kill the woman our protagonist loved for some reason. Had the man been in his right mind, he might have paused to consider what motivated the dragon god, at least demand an explanation. He could have used his intellect to talk Laplace down, to avoid combat completely. Alas, the man's bloodlust overcame him. When he saw his beloved was wounded, fury seized him. The man let out a roar, of a kind that never escaped his throat before or since, then flung himself at Laplace. The dragon god was taken aback. Of course he was. His opponent wore the armor. He was sure no one would ever find. Worse, no demon eye could perceive him. The man's title as demonic dragon god was not simply for show. He was lone surviving king of an ancient dragon race, a person whom the man's own people dared not oppose. So yeah, that gives me an indication there that yes, I guess when he arrived, she was already wounded. And the part where he was, in a maddened state led him to not want to converse. So not necessarily saying that he was seeing things wrong, but more of the fact that I could have probably talked to him. Like this, again, this is Body Gotti. He's all about intellect. I would use my wits to talk about the situation, find out what was actually happening, and possibly diffuse the situation. I could possibly have stopped whatever fighting was happening. He's attacking her, but I could probably have talked him to stop. But I was enraged. I had to fight. It's interesting. But I'm still confused as why she doesn't know who it is. Or at least say the real name. Other than the fact that that's what history says his name is, so I'm going to go with it. Then kabang! Something dropped from the ceiling. It was Rada. Using the secret Rada technique, something dropped from the ceiling. It was a giant man all dressed in armor. She thought it was more enemies, but then she realized the back of the suit of the armor looked like someone she knew well. Her prayers had been answered, not by a god. Well, the fighting god. Technically the fighting god, but somebody that she knew. In front of her was the immortal demon king, Body Gotti, last of the great demon kings, wearing armor like none she had seen before. He had challenged the champion to fight.
Don't do it. He's too powerful for you.
Kishirika called out. This guy was a rarity amongst demons. An intellect. He looked like a big lunk, but every word from his mouth was carefully considered and clever. Needless to say, he'd hardly ever been in a fight before. But people can change before you knew it. Since the last time Kishirika had seen him, Body had gotten stronger. A close fight broke out, with Body holding his own against the monster. Kalang, balang! Even after they reduced the castle to rubble, they kept fighting. Bablang, kalung! Next, they destroyed the town. But the fight wasn't done. It seemed as though they could go on for an eternity, wiping out every other living soul. But no fight lasts forever. At the end of a long, deadly struggle, a victor emerged. Body had defeated the champion. But the champion was no common man. At the very end, he left behind something big for them to remember him by. He blew himself up. He tried to trade his own life for killing Body and Kishirika. I have to stop him, Kishirika thought. But she was helpless. She didn't have anywhere enough power to stop him. Body had power. He'd beaten the champion in battle. But in the course of the long struggle, he used up all of his strength and was on the verge of collapse. He could only accept their fate. Body's helmet came off, and he turned to Kishirika, looking half dead. If I'm born again, I will be your husband.
Haha, if you come back to life, then by all means, I'll marry you.
Then they both got blown sky high. But they shared a tender smile as they went. So romantic.
I will marry you.
So romantic.
No matter how many times I tell that story, it never gets old. Especially the bit where he comes to rescue me. My heart skips a beat just thinking about it. Anyways, you get it now, right, boy? The bonds between Body and me are unbreakable. So, I can't be your bride.
As she finished her story, Kishirika turned back to look at the boy again.
Eh? What's this? Are you sleeping?
The boy sat leaning against the wall, sound asleep. Maybe it was his nap time.
Perhaps he's a bit too young for an adult love story like mine.
Kishirika mused, cocking her head as she got to her feet. If he had fallen asleep, then that was just too bad.
Still, I need to thank him for the food. Ha!
She jabbed her finger into the boy's eye. Then there was a pause. Then, the pain made the boy wake up. But by then, it was too late. One of his eyes had been transformed into a demon eye, and Kishirika was on standby for a liftoff to a whole nother world.
Farewell, boy. Huh? Wait up. Think of the demon eye I've given you as a piece of me. Take good care of it. Marriage isn't going to work between us. But if you master that eye, you never know. I might take you as one of my personal guard. Ha 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 ha.
The boy was disoriented by the change in his vision, but he looked up at Kishirika and reached out towards her. Alas, she was beyond his reach. All he could do was stretch out his hand forward to the heavens. A few decades later, a warrior joined Kishirika's followers. They say his loyalty was fiercer, and his mastery of the demon eye was more complete than any other. But that's a story for another time. Again, this is taking place... Let me see the timeline. It has a convenient timeline in the front of this one. I like it. So she said 1, 2, 3, 4,000 years ago when I battled Aldebaran. 4,200 years prior to the start of the story, yes, that's the point in which she fought Aldebaran. So we're going to assume it's been at least half of that. So we're going to assume that 4,000 was correct there, which would bring us to the current time. But she hasn't really been in the history books since then. But apparently at some point here in the current time, around when Ruius is around, he's going to grow up and become one of his fiercest loyal followers. But she never has anybody with her in the current time when Ruius is around. So my assumption is that possibly this will be something later. Like this might possibly be post-Ruius' story, basically. Post-Volume 26. That's all I can think of. Because again, I don't remember anybody with a horn that has a demon eye. That is a faithful follower of Kishirika specifically. This could be possibly set up for something in the future with when Kishirika regains all of her power and tries to do something again. Could be. We'll see. So on to short story, A Special Present. Sometimes Norn asks the story. Oh, I forgot this. This one got me pretty emotional. We'll see if this one gets me again. Sometimes Norn asked for a story before she went to sleep. Paul told her tales of what he knew. Given that they were things that he remembered, he thought they were stories for boys. But Norn always seemed to enjoy them. One day, he tucked her in and offered to tell her a story, only for her to reply,
"Hey, tell me a story about Mom."
"Your mom?"
"Uh-huh. Today, Dole and Martha, tell me about, first love. They said in Millis, they get a present from Destiny, and that's why they got married."
Dole and Martha was a married couple from the Fatoa search party. Specifically, they got married around the summer of last year, so they were newlyweds. Paul had been hearing them go on and on about how happy and in love they were for the past year. Paul couldn't believe they were bragging to Norn about it too.
So then, Dad, I was wondering, did you and Mom get the present from Destiny?"
"Oh, gee, nah. Me and Zenith didn't really..." Paul stopped himself. A moment sprang to his mind, but he didn't look all that hot in all those stories. He'd given Zenith plenty of presents, but mostly weird, selfish stuff that got him iffy looks from her. But as Norn looked at Paul with her eyes all sparkly, he remembered all of a sudden the reason why he started giving her all those presents. To be sure, he didn't come out looking too hot in the story either, but he took the leap. It's so sweet. Like, I will say, after reading this little chapter right here, it's one of those moments where I'm like, I got a feeling of this when we were reading Paul Gaiden, to be honest. I think one of the weakest aspects of Paul Gaiden was I felt like Zenith didn't really have much to her. I think the later parts of the story with her, basically putting away her own statements, like there was moments where it felt like it was implying that Zenith wanted to say something, but she kept it to herself. Like she was purposely going out of her way not to speak up out of line. She knew what Paul was doing in the moment that he broke up the party. She knew it was something that was important to him and that he was sacrificing something very important to be with her. And she chose not to say something. It's moments where she chose not to say something. But like a very brief moment in this whole segment right here is like, okay, we're getting like a cute little relationship stuff kind of going on with this storytelling. We're getting some of our Fujin writing now. And again, technically not in the format of a visual novel. And yeah, some people made some good points that typically with visual novels, yeah, there's there's expressiveness and whatnot in the character models. When you have them sort of change models to more like blushy ones, or, pop up and down or move towards each other, whatever. Visual novels has sort of very limited animation to it, but there's animation in the 2D PNG characters that are kind of on the screen. Lately, he done nothing but act a fool in front of everyone. A bit more couldn't hurt. Maybe there was. Right, I'll tell you an old story. Back from when me and Zenith were still adventurers. Listening eagerly, Norn's eyes shone ever brighter. Zenith had settled into the fangs of the Black Wolf, and they just started taking on Labyrinth for real. That day, Zenith and Paul were walking around the street stalls together. Paul seemed to remember Zenith wanting to go to check them out, and he made her take him along. Whenever Zenith tried to go anywhere alone, he'd always claim that it was too dangerous to go alone. For that reason, he used to go out shopping with her a lot. Was that because he was already in love with her? Yeah, he guessed he was. He probably would have denied it back then, but he was already in love with her. Yeah, and again, it gave that impression that at this time, with the whole thing with them going to labyrinths and stuff like that, they started implying more and more that he was... Again, he wanted her, like the moment that he seen her. He just didn't know what it was. He had this feeling with her. But as they started doing the labyrinth and whatnot, there was that moment where he started to, yes, connect her to his mother. That idea of, oh, what is this feeling I have? It's this yearning for this thing that I had a long time ago that I have never experienced ever since. Love. It's just plain love. It's not what's usual for him, sexual. I want to bang this. No, I want family. Love, family. So yeah, back then I wouldn't have admitted it. I was still in that mindset of not knowing what that was. He probably would have denied it back then, but he was already in love with her, and he would have done anything to get her attention. They were walking along when, all of a sudden, Zenith came to stop in front of a stall. What's this? The stall sold antiques, or rather useless junk dug up from the labyrinth. It was a pretty sketchy shop. The stall was covered in a jumble of old stuff they didn't even bother polishing. Welcome, take your time and look around. The stallkeeper began to tell them of the goods. He showed them a flask that was always producing water, and a bottle that would blow up if he threw it. How do you know unless you throw it? This bottle right here, if you throw it and it shatters, it will explode. How do you know? Yeah, so this right here, this right here, all kinds of stuff that sounded useful at first, but Zenith and Paul were veterans. They knew you could easily get magical implements with more powerful effects at a cheaper price. The only people that would buy stuff from a store like this were newbies that just became adventurers, or idiot nobles going incognito. Yeah, and again, they imply that a lot with the magical implements. That sort of commonality there between the two of them, that they're objects that can do something, where the magical items that you would get from a labyrinth is, again, the mana flowing through objects that imbues it with magic, and they acquire those items that have some sort of effect, and it's often very random. And they could be very powerful effects, but in most cases a bunch of useless junk. But with the magical implements, it's an item where you're etching onto it magic circles, feeding it mana, and it creates some sort of effect. And yes, you can mass produce these. It's whatever you pick up. It's completely random. It's basically like an RPG. Either you craft it with set stats, or you're getting a random effect. Zenith took her time looking over the items until she saw something that made her perk up. She was silent with her gasp, but Paul was so desperate to make her notice him, he caught it. This is so cool. I wanted one of these. She was looking at a totally ordinary, battered old metal. Normally, he would have given it a glance and moved on without a second thought. You have good taste, miss. This metal... Come on, let's go. Paul cut off the stallkeeper and pulled Zenith away. Okay, no need to rush. If Paul had bought the metal and given it to her then and there, that would have been pretty smooth too. But that wasn't what he did. In order to make her like him better, he wanted to add a little something extra. So after he got Zenith away from the stall, he quickly went back to buy the metal. Then he went back to the inn and used his kit used to clean his sword to buff up the metal. He figured that she'd like it better, polished up nice, thing all covered in grime. The next day, he went to Zenith with total confidence to give her the metal. How do you do, Zenith? Fancy meeting you here. How do you do? Formal today, aren't we? What are you scheming this time? Oh, nothing really. You know the other day you saw something that you liked at the antique store? What was it anyways? I figure by this point she knows what he's doing. Like, this girl's not dumb. This girl's not dumb. I mean, probably the biggest obvious thing is that she's like, oh, I've always wanted these. Get out of here. Let's go over here. And then he just disappears at some point. Like, yeah, he probably went back to get it. Paul could have just handed it over, but he wanted to set the mood. So he asked a question to lead into it first. Ah, that. She spoke with a satisfied sort of nod. The Knights of the Anchor Kingdom used to use the metals to identify themselves. There were 7 types in all. She then told him about the legend of the Knights of Anchor. It was called a legend, But really, it was a story written to appeal to kids. It had been popular in mills for a while. It was about an order of knights from a kingdom that was destroyed battling demons in the Laplace War. The story had 7 main characters. The knight order had 7 ranks. And there were 7 kinds of medals. So basically, each person got 1 medal that symbolized that character. There was a picture of the medals in a book that I read when I was little. Seeing the real thing made me kind of nostalgic. But why are you asking? Oh, no reason. I was just wondering. See ya. And if it ain't obvious at that point, boy, she reading you like an open book at this point. If he had given it to her then, after she told him what the medals meant to her, he was sure that it would have made her happy. But after listening to her, he reconsidered. There was 7 medals. One would probably make her happy, but that wouldn't do. If he really wanted to impress her with one big gesture, 1 wasn't enough. He had to collect all 7 and give them to her. That's what he thought. Go above and beyond. He going above and beyond for this girl. Got a bagger. From that point on, he was obsessed with medal collecting. He spent every free moment checking shops, even when they were exploring labyrinths, and he found a pile of junk. He hunted through them for medals. He even asked the info broker about the medals' whereabouts, and got Geese to help in the search. It seemed to pay off. He found one medal after another until he got 6 of them. Only one escaped him, and he never got a hold of it. The last one was the rarest of all the Anchor Kingdom Knights medals. It had the most elaborate design, was the biggest, and it was the most expensive. It belonged to the Knight Commander, of course. Paul actually hunted down an auction house where it was on sale and tried to buy it, but he didn't have the cash. Kind of surprising, because at this point, this dude's rolling in money. Paul right at this point is rolling in dough. So that was probably going for a high price that like only nobility could afford. It really got him down. I'm surprised he didn't attack them to steal it. He thought that he would never be able to give her the present. Zenith probably would have been happy no matter what he gave her. But that didn't occur to him back then. While he was worried what to do, Geese told him something.
You don't have to collect them all, right? What if you got a pretty chain and made a kind of fashion accessory out of them?
Paul wasn't convinced. If it were him, he'd want a full set. Only a real bozo would wrap up all but one of them and set them in a pretty box. First, he had 1 medal. But now he was 1 medal short. Out of the 2, he would have taken just the 1 medal. That was what made him decide to take Geese up on his suggestion. But just doing as he said wasn't interesting. So he decided to add a bit of flair. First, he went to a skill artisan and had him polish the metal until they gleamed like new. Afterwards, he went to a general store, bought a fine silver chain. The color went nicely with the metals. Then he went back to the artisan to fit them all together. He went to a cloth seller and paid a pretty penny for a bit of silk. Then he put them in a box that he was going to put the 7 medals in once he collected them all. It was complete. A beautiful pendant that wouldn't have looked out of place if it was sold in a noble shop. He was feeling pleased with himself. There weren't many guys around who'd take a grimy old medal from an antique shop and make it into this pretty of a present. He then took the medal to Zenith. Looking back, he should have made it into a date, but back then, he wanted to look cool. He felt like it'd be a bit lame to go through all that trouble for a girl. Really? Zenith, let's go over here. Hey, let me buy that. Polish, 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 polish. Oh, that was great. Hey, let's get all of them. All 7 of them. Scrounging through labyrinth junk, looking everywhere, going to an auction, trying to buy the last one at an auction, bringing it all together, polishing it all up again, putting them into a nice pendant with a nice chain and some silk cloth in a box. He felt like it'd be a bit lame to go through all that trouble for a girl. He wanted to look cool. Okay. Okay, dude. Okay. He instead gave it to her in the dining room at the inn. How do you do, Zenith? How do you do? Formal today, Art. You know, I feel like we've had this conversation before. Here's where I like that personality's finally coming through. That personality that I wasn't really getting from Paul Guiden, unfortunately. Have we? So, what do you need? Zenith asked, propping her chin up on her hand. There was a sort of mischievous look in her eyes. She knows. Zenith, she knows. She knows. She was so pretty, had beautiful golden hair that shone in the sunlight, and she was elegant, even with her chin resting on her hands. It was only her eyes that you saw a hint of mischief. It was the contrast, really. He had seen all kinds of girls in his time, nobles' daughters and adventurers' daughters, and daughters of townfolk. But there was something different about Zenith. She looked and held herself like a noble, all elegance, but she didn't talk or act like a sophisticated type. She had an innocent air. Sitting in front of her then, Paul got a bit nervous. Love it. Again, this is a guy that... This dude is... a ladies guy. Like he can pick up any girl he wants. He go in there with that look. He's got the looks to give it, and he's got the confidence. But in front of Zenith, everything breaks down. Oh, I wouldn't say I need anything exactly. What's up? She said teasingly, leaning in to stare at him. That's when it clicked. He realized someone, probably Elise or the like, had ratted him out ages ago. Back then, he was the sort of guy who might have gotten mad and stormed off, but he put a lot of time collecting them and a lot of effort in wrapping them up nicely. Plus, Zenith was pretty. Yeah, again, I don't think it was anybody that ratted out. I think she picked up on it. I mean, it seems obvious. Now he's asking about the medal, and then storms off, and now he pops up again. Oh yeah, that's right. He pulled me away from the stall when I talked about that. It makes sense. But again, he's putting aside his little pride. No, this girl, I can't run away. He stuck out his hand with a box in it at Zenith. For you. Huh? She probably thought that he would just hand her the medals. When he held out a box, her eyes went wide. Can I open it? That's the only way you're going to be able to see what's inside. She slowly opened the box and gasped. He wasn't sure if it was a good or bad gasp. Partly because of that, he started to make rambling excuses. You said the medal was cool back then when you saw it at the antique stall, right? So yeah, I mean, you said there was 7, so it would be better if I got the whole set. But I don't have that sort of time. He was really thinking about getting all 7. But when he was done embarrassing himself with excuses, Zenith took the medals out of the box and gazed at them. They're so pretty. For a while, she held the medals up into the light and looked at them. When she put it around her neck, she did a twirl. Well, does it suit me? Yeah, it looks great. Zenith blushed, but she smiled like she was pleased. Come here, Paul. I want to tell you something. She beckoned him with her finger, so he obeyed and went up to her. She leaned up. Oh, God. I hate that right there. Right there, I think of Volume 12. Right there, I think of Volume 12. Right there. God damn it. She beckoned him with her finger, so she obeyed him and went up to her. She leaned in and put her lips to his ear. Before he knew it, she pulled away again to say thank you. For a second, he didn't understand what happened, but he could still feel a hint of warmth, as well as a soft touch of her lips on his cheek. She'd gone even redder than before. She laughed shyly. Thank you, I'll treasure it. She then fled back to her room. I'm pretty sure Volume 1 does not mention the medals. Pretty sure. Not a mention of it. But I'm kind of wondering if somewhere in the first episode of the anime, I wonder if there's a reference there. I kind of want to check the first episodes of him in Buena Village and see if it's in the background somewhere. I would wonder if they would have referenced this. But no, I think the anime first episode came out before this came out, right? They might not have had this to reference it. We'll see. I found out later that Zenith had known that I was going to give her the medals after all, but she hadn't thought it would be so pretty. She just assumed that I would hand over dirty medals as I found them at the antique stalls. So she was thrilled. Then, huh? As Paul went on recounting the memories from long ago, he realized that Norm wasn't reacting like she was before. He looked down at her face, just like Zenith's, but so much younger. Her eyes were closed, and she was breathing deeply. She must have nodded off while he was talking. Ah, geez. Maybe she's just a bit too young for that story. He scratched the back of his head, then gently stroked Norn's head. She'd grown a lot since the displacement incident, too. For all that, she was still only a kid. But once she had grown up some more, she'd be as beautiful as Zenith. With the boys she would have chasing after her, Norn would fall in love one day, too. I wonder what Zenith would say if she brought home a boy like me. That hurts. That fucking hurts. He spoke with a wry smile, then stood up. They still haven't found Zenith, or Lilia, or Aisha. For now, he had to keep doing what he could. That was the only way Zenith and he could be together to meet whoever Norn fell in love with. Damn. Sucks. But I guess Rudy will be first. Just the other day, Paul had parted ways from his son. He pictured his face along with that girl that was with him. Then he turned off the light and put his hand on the door. Good night, Norn, he said quietly as he left the room. Right. Think I'll get back to work. With that, he turned to his job with a search party. This sucks. The biggest freaking tragedy of the entire freaking series that all this work to do was doing. He didn't get the chance to do all this stuff that he wanted to do when his family got back together. Because his sacrifice, that final push to get it back together. Sucks so freaking bad, dude. It sucks so bad. Ugh, I hate it. You suck, Refugin. That was 2 stories, though, of somebody telling a story to a young person about love, and they fall asleep. There's another pattern that we're getting here. We're getting people that are starving to death, and somebody comes along, and people telling stories of romances. Short story, Ruius' summer. This is a stupid one. This is a stupid story. Ruius and party arrived at Eastport. When he stepped off the boat, he was in the King Dragon Kingdom. There were custom officials, and as they checked their luggage, they charged a toll. But as long as you paid the required fees, it was no trouble. Eris, Rigerd, and Rudius went out into the port. Now they were only a stone throw away from the Central Continent and the Ashra Kingdom. After setting down the streets to look for somewhere to stay, a street stall caught Rudius' attention. The goods on display there, made of cloth. Cloth with very little surface area. That's right. It was an underwear store. Ponsu store. Ponsides. Now don't get the wrong idea. Ruius wasn't interested in underwear or anything. It was just the material these were made out of. He hadn't seen much before, and it got his attention to see the shop in the middle of the street that only sold underwear. Street stalls that dealt in cloth, usually focused on travel gear, and made underwear with whatever fabric was left over. That being said, he went over to talk to the stall-keeper. Hey, mister, don't see many shops selling underwear in a place like this. Oh, if you don't know what these are, you must be a traveler, eh? That's right, we came from Millis, on our way to Asra. Well, listen here. This isn't underwear. This is swimwear. Reese was shocked. The man said swimwear. This world didn't have much of a concept of swimwear. When he went out to play in a river, it was a lolicon paradise. Gosh. Oh, gosh. Damn it, Rudius. Okay, we'll go back to old Rudius. When you go out into water, play with clothes on, they get in your way, which makes it hard to swim, right? But underwear goes see-through, and that's embarrassing. And never mind going naked. This swimwear here was developed for folks like that. Swimwear? Are there pools here? In this town, there's a bit of coast that was given to a fisherman long ago by the sea folk after he saved their king. It's not big enough that you can go making a living fishing it, and troubles come between the humans and the sea folks enough times that you can't even fish there for fun. But monsters hardly ever go there. So these days, fishermen, adventurers, and the like use it for swimming practice. Wow. It wasn't quite like pools Rudius knew, but they had somewhere for people to go to swim in the ocean. He was also looking at the display of swimwear, made from seriously tiny pieces of fabric. And behind him, eyes lighting up as she learned that you could swim there, was Eris. In that moment, they shared a common dream. I'll take one, mister. Pleasure doing business with you. The man gave a toothy grin. The scorching days of summer had arrived. It's Nanahoshi. It's Nanahoshi. You know it's Nanahoshi. It's always Nanahoshi. She was dropping some hints in this area. Like this port right here, if I remember correctly, this is the same one where he meets the death god. She was coming up in here and she was just sprinkling ideas. Hey, make some karage. Hey, make some swimwear. I wonder. I mean, it could just be through like, I should have a tear right there from earlier. There's a tear that was just hanging out right there and I had to get rid of it. Apparently it was just chilling there until I decided to touch it. I guess it could just be like Nanahoshi, you know, Silent 7-Star, the idea of like just doing the whole trade of like concepts and whatnot and making money off of it for her study and whatnot. But it just seems like the oddities that she kind of dropped here specifically seems like she was just kind of testing the waters. And so she could have sold the concept of swimwear to this guy and made a quick buck. But it makes me almost think like she came here and was like, a beach that I can go swim in? I want to swim in it, but I don't have swimwear. And so she decides to tell this guy the concept so that he would make it for her so that she could wear it and go out swimming in the ocean. Like, damn, I've come to this world. You can't swim in the oceans in this world. Again, there's monsters in it. I mean, that was established when Ruiz first arrived at a beach with Eris, which again, that was that whole like heartbreak that Saros wanted to take her to a beach. But when she first arrived at a beach, she was excited. Again, she wanted to see the beach way back there. Finally, she gets to see it. Finally, I can finally jump in the ocean. Nope, can't. Rigerd says, nope, can't. Too dangerous. Monsters in there. I was like, at that point, I was thinking, okay, just Rigerd, you go stand out there a little bit. She can have her fun right here, and you just kill any monsters that come up to the coast. Cause a war with the sea folk. So this is like the only one. And again, Nanahoshi's been traveling all over the place at this point, trying to find a way home and also, her companions. And then finally right here, she finally finds an ocean where you can swim on. Now, granted, I think she could probably have had, again, Orsted probably kill anything that came to attack her while she has fun in the ocean. But anyways, she wants to have fun on that beach. And so she basically just gets this guy to make a swimwear for her so that she can then go on the beach. So this is an after effect. And again, same thing with the Death God. She probably wanted to try Karage, and so she had him make it. And here she wanted to she must have stayed at this place for a little bit. I'm thinking she stayed here for a little bit and wanted to try some stuff out. This could have been probably the test bed for her in spreading her ideas for profit for the sake of study to get out of there. I need a Nanahoshi Orsted Adventures segment. I better get at least 2 chapters of Orsted and Nanahoshi traveling. The scorching days of summer had arrived. The temperature was rising in his heart too. Before him was a white, sandy beach, the blue ocean, and bright yellow sun. The red seashells poking out of the sparkling sand completed the picture. The fisherman who thought that he would have this beach, or the king who decided to give it to him, would have looked at this beautiful beach and pictured lovers walking arm in arm or something. Tragically, the scene before Rudius only had single men and women sweating through their swimming practice. But still, upon that very beach, there appeared a single flower. Wearing a black bikini Rudius had bought her, with her red hair tied back in a ponytail, came Eris. It had been a mission. Eris had not been keen. I wanted someone to see, yeah, but in that swimsuit, it's basically underwear. Girl was about to take it all off last time. He talked her around and then had her get changed. And now, at long last, he was blessed with his wonderful world. Her boobs and butt had developed a fair bit. Her belly button was charming. Her legs long and slender. He was a simple man. Just looking at her was good enough. I'm assuming... Yeah, it would be. That's black. Right there. Yeah, that's the black one with the hood. That must have been the one they're talking about. Oh, goodness. And that must be that one. That must be the one they're talking about. That is black. That's a black one. I mean, that makes sense to him talking about the fact that, there's very little cloth. That it would be something like this. For the folks that never seen my unboxing, shame you. Should have been checking out my unboxing of it. The cloak makes it. I love the cloak. He went over to Eris. They had watermelons to split, waves to chase, and sunsets to watch. Reese, I'm going to swim. Not so fast, Eris. You have to warm up first. What if you get leg cramps in the water? She wasn't listening. She could see paradise. With a great expanse of ocean before her, she couldn't wait. Her heart was already in the ocean. Richard, teach me how to swim. I'm off. Eris, I said wait. Before she could run off, he tried to grab her. She knew exactly where this was going the moment it said try to stop her. Knew exactly where it was going. But he then misjudged the distance, or she moved, because his fingers slipped straight through the empty air, then caught on the knot on the back of her swimsuit. Perhaps she hadn't tied it tight enough. The knot came undone, and her swimsuit went fluttering to the ground. Hey, what the hell? Care to guess what Rudius got an eyeful of next? Eris's 2 soft heels with cherry pink peaks, perhaps? Nope. All he got was a tightly clenched fist. So Rudius took Eris's Boreas punch straight into the face and blacked out. While he was out cold, Eris had a fantastic time enjoying the beach. And with that, summer came to a close. Rudius got to enjoy that bikini really well, right? Oh, it's a stupid story. This is a stupid short story. Short story, everyone's good and bad habits. Luke perspective chapter. Ooh. Luke Notos Greyrat had a bad habit. He couldn't help but chat up every woman he laid his eyes on. And in particular, women with large breasts made his judgment go out the window. So long as the cup size was large enough, he didn't care about age. Girls who hadn't come of age yet, women who blushed of youth, old cronies who were past 60. He flirted with them all. If he happened to seduce a girl they could take straight to bed, so much the better. For the sake of his honor, however, it should be said that his flirtations were not solely for the purpose of satisfying his sexual urges. It was only a habit. Using his voice and his looks to make women that he took a fancy to, like him in return, gave him an indescribable sense of exhilaration and achievement. Simply put, he just liked getting friendly with women with big boobs. With women older than his father, on the other hand, He tried pickup lines without any ulterior motives. Sometimes, however, his tendency to try to cozy up with everyone brought about trouble.
My goodness. It's my darling Luke. How have you been?
Hey, Josephine. Josephine was the wife of a high-ranking noble. To be truthful, I formatted this chapter, but I didn't really read it very closely. I didn't really fully read this chapter completely. Her husband had already passed away. Okay, that's fine then, I guess. And she had relinquished her estate to her son, but there were many nobles indebted to her, and so she continued to wield authority at the palace. As you could already guess from the fact that she handed over her estate to her son, she was 3 times Luke's age. That obviously disqualified her as a potential love interest to him. Hey, old ladies need love too, man. Old ladies need love too, man. Luke is like the most... Luke is a gray rat. Luke is a gray rat. Luke goes around and hits a lot of things, but it's very interesting how this guy is very more focused in on this type. This type. Like, yeah, Sylphie, gross. This lady, she's a mom, gross. You have another lovely dress on today. It makes your beauty shine all the brighter. No, your beauty would shine no matter what dress you wear. But to Luke, age was only a number. The compliments came pouring out of him practically automatically. Josephine was delighted.
Oh, Luke, you just know what to say to make a lady smile. This dress, you know, came from the King Dragon Kingdom. It's woven through with threads made from king dragons, so it's ever so durable. Not to mention the shine.
Threads made from king dragon? Where do you get the threads from? Their whiskers or something?
When Josephine went on at lengths about her dress, Luke listened attentively. They went on like that for an hour. So that you don't get the wrong idea, it should be said that Luke wasn't annoyed by this. On the contrary, he thoroughly enjoyed that hour. At least he's not the type of gray rat that's just sitting there going, boobs, when do I get the boobs, when do I get the boobs, when do I get the boobs? After all, there was a lady with large breasts in front of him. Never mind. God damn it.
I said I didn't read this. I said I didn't really actually read this. I know what happens, but I didn't get the details.
Damn it.
I'm kind of glad that I didn't like fully read this one, because this is one of those ones where there's little jabs every now and then. There was a lady with large breasts in front of him in a dress that showed off her cleavage, talking happily about things that she liked. There was nothing not to enjoy. If anything, moments like this were why he flirted in the first place. But with Josephine, it didn't end there.
Oh yes, today, Luke, my darling, I brought you something you'll like.
Did you now?
Fetch it here.
A servant waiting in the corner of the garden stepped forward. They held out a flat object wrapped in cloth to Luke.
This is for you, my dear, to thank you for always being there to talk to me.
You shouldn't have. Thank you, Josephine. As a servant unwrapped the item, Luke's face froze on his face. Josephine had given him a painting. The subject of the painting, however, was so peculiar and perverted that he shied from putting it into words.
Oh, do you like it? I had a portrait painted just for you.
Yes, thank you, Josephine.
You are very welcome. I could hardly do anything less when it's for you, my love.
Josephine went on explaining the painting in great detail. She told him where she found the portraiture, the sort of paint it was painted in, and what sort of brush he had used. Luke listened, forcing himself to smile. At last, Josephine seemed satisfied.
But bye for now, darling Luke. Until next time.
She said that, and then she left. Luke was left with the painting. He took another good look at it, then screwed up his face. Blah. He styled himself as a chivalrous type, but this painting was a step too far. That was how bad it was. I'll just hide it away in the back of the storeroom later. Or maybe he thought for a moment, then he took the painting home with him. Ariel perspective. I don't remember if it actually says what the painting is. It's a portrait, and she knows what paint the guy used and the paint colors and everything. So I'm assuming it's a portrait of her. If it's like unsettling and she's really old, the assumption is that she had him paint her. And it don't look good. It don't look good, and it's probably nude. It's probably nude. There was a lot of perverts amongst the royals and the aristocracy of Asura. There were people who had everything, fame, riches, the lot. Anything an ordinary person might lust after could be theirs without effort. And so they developed degenerate tastes. It was said that 9 out of every 10 aristocrats held covert fetishes. Compared to the others, Ariel Anemoi Asura was known for being relatively ordinary. That's saying a lot. If she's like the ordinary type. She did mess around sometimes, but that was perfectly vanilla. In fact, there was rumors that she only did it to blend in at the palace. When in Rome, is that the comment there? Perhaps it was her appearance and her captivating voice that made people think that way. The truth was, Ariel was just like the others. That's right. Ariel had her own unique tastes. Hers was a particularly unusual one. She liked to make a fool of herself in front of people. Yep. Princess. Yep. Some might have thought, is that all? That sounds pretty normal. It was true, there was many others who enjoyed similar pursuits, so-called exhibitionists. But what Ariel liked wasn't the exposure. For her, it was the moment of embarrassment, as she heard the clatter of stacked objects coming clashing down that really titillated her. As she grew in the ranks and in people's estimations, the pleasure it brought her only increased. I'm assuming the whole like clashing down thing is that idea of like a maid comes and serves her regularly. And, they're like, wow, she's so beautiful. She's so refined. Oh, she's so fantastic. She's so perfect. And she keeps putting on this act that she's perfect. And then one day they come walking in with like a tray with their food for the day. And they come in there and they're ready to serve her tea or whatever. And then she's there pissing herself for something and they just drop the stuff. Oh, she's actually like the rest of them. Okay. And then Ariel's over there going, perfect. It was only pleasurable if she didn't do it on purpose. Deliberately doing something embarrassing didn't push any of her buttons. It only worked when some freak chance shattered the image of perfect Ariel, the perfect princess. Yep. I didn't dawn on me before if this is the case, because I don't think they really ever implied this. I think it always gave me the feeling that just people assumed that these people are weird. These people had these weird oddities about them. They're doing freaky stuff in there. That's always the assumption. I kind of got a feeling that was known for her, that she had these weird oddities. I guess that's because of our perspective, we get to see that stuff really through Sylphie. Through Sylphie, we see that she's freaky, and so it's already pre-established for us. But I think this is sort of a very important point to make, because I'm not sure if it might get into it later on. This may be why people beloved Ariel so much. Yes, it's the charm of her, that she has this way of charming people. When she speaks, she just grabs people and they just want to serve her. But I think there could be an element here where, unlike a lot of the other royalty, the other nobles, whatever, they're going to back her more just because of the fact that they view her as the perfect princess. They don't know that she's freaky. And it's not that she's hiding the fact that she's freaky. It's that she's just waiting for that moment that she can just have it happen. And then that's the ultimate kick for her. So it's kind of a side effect that this is the thing that she likes to do. Be the perfect princess until that thing happens. And then she gets just fulfilled by it. And that essentially makes people view her as the perfect princess. And that's why people back her so much and love her so much. She's viewed as pure. There's going to be people that know. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that know, especially all the maids. But for everybody else, they're always going to see the perfect princess. Interesting. Because of this, she kept up her perfect act, taking care that no one ever caught onto her proclivities. What's this? One day, she noticed a strange object in the corner of the room. It was rectangular and wrapped in cloth. It looked like a painting. Without thinking anything of it, Ariel picked it up. Some people might wonder why she would pick up something that she had no recollection of. But when you were somebody as important as Ariel, you received presents every other day. And as a rule, the contents were checked before being left in the room. Of course, even then, there was sometimes poisonous needles that were hidden inside, so her safety was by no means guaranteed. But there was no poison needles today. Ariel managed to get a look at the item. There were no poisonous needles, but it was poisonous all the same. How awful! The painting that emerged was a character to make you question the morals of the possessor. Who in the world? Is this some sort of prank of Luke's? She examined the painting closely. It was awful. Really awful. It would be mortifying if anyone so much as knew that she had it. Just holding it like this made her feel hot and bothered. she imagined people thinking Lady Ariel with a thing like that. She's like, oh, this is, oh. So weird, dude. She's so weird. A shiver went through her. Ariel had a bad habit. She collected things that would get her in trouble if anyone saw them. Everything she collected was kept secretly hidden, and then every now and then she would think, if anyone ever found these, I'd be finished, surrendering herself to the ecstasy of the thought of when the thought was one of her few pleasures. I better hide this, she said to herself. It wasn't stealing. If you were royalty, you naturally assumed that everything in your room was yours. Indeed, nothing in that room did not belong to her, from the objects to the people. As such, she didn't need permission to use or throw away anything left there, or hide such things. I'll put it under the bed for now. Ariel I literally could see a word in the line below this. I literally see the word in the line below this. Ariel stashed the picture under the bed like a junior high school boy hiding his porn magazines, then realized he needed to be okay. Then she realized she needed to. I'm surprised the girl didn't lose it just by seeing the picture and thinking about what would happen. Oops, perhaps I drank too much tea. There were some among the common folk who thought that Lady Ariel never used the toilet, just like idols, right? Just like idols, right? I know what you're doing, Refugin. I know what you're doing, Refugin. Obviously, that was not the case. Well, we know it's not the case. Ariel, well... I was gonna say we know that's the case, but we're talking about actually using a physical toilet. Obviously, that's not the case. Shut up, Andrew. Ariel's room had an adjoining toilet for her personal use. She headed to it now. Fitz' perspective. Time for her to find it. I think we're just gonna go through every single character finding this thing. Sylphie, otherwise known as Fitz, was Ariel's bodyguard. Yeah, this is interesting because at this point, it finally clicked for me that, oh, we're talking about pre-taking over the throne. Because up until this point, reading this, I'm like, okay, is this the story of when she's already taken the throne? And then once I seen Fitz here, I'm like, oh, okay, the clock in my brain for where we're talking about was way over here. And now we're going way back here when Fitz was bodyguard for her when she was in the royal palace. Okay, rewind. Sylphie, otherwise known as Fitz, was Ariel's bodyguard. Her job was to protect Ariel and also to carry out orders that Ariel occasionally gave her. Today, the order was to relay a little rumor to a certain high-ranking noble. She had carried it out without trouble, then came back to the palace. Huh? Lady Ariel? And no Luke either? I guess he's not back yet. Her ward was nowhere to be seen. Is she in the toilet? I'm more surprised that both Luke and Sylphie were not with her. Who's protecting her right now? Who's protecting her right now? I guess this is pre-assassination attempt starting. I mean, she was already talking about the idea of looking for needles and stuff like that, poisonous needles, but that's gonna be typical for their lifestyle. But this? Why was she not there? Her ward was nowhere to be seen. Is she in the toilet? She wondered, looking over towards the toilet door. Then Fitz noticed something. Huh? From under the bed, there was a piece of cloth poking out ever so slightly. She hadn't seen it before. Silently, Fitz drew her staff. I'm assuming that's supposed to be the rod. Drew the big old staff. Like, no, she just had a little wand. Fitz drew her wand. If an assassin were lying in wait. I'm actually curious if that's a boo-boo by Refugin, because I would assume that's supposed to be wand. She never carried anything but the little wand that Rias gave her. Yeah, even in the book it says staff. Anyway, it's not a big deal. If an assassin were laying in wait, under the bed was a terrible hiding place. All the same, she couldn't relax her guard. Taking care not to make a sound, she approached the bed. Her wand in one hand, she extended it towards the cloth, then yanked it out. In the same instant, she pointed her mana-charged wand at it and shouted, "Don't move!" Then she stopped short. What is this? She then pulled out a flat object. Perhaps because she tugged on it, the cloth had fallen away to reveal a fraction of what was inside. It seemed to be a painting. What's a painting doing here? She muttered to herself. Very carefully, she began to pull away the cloth. There might be poison needles concealed inside, she thought, handling it with care, but there was no trap set on it, and she removed the cloth without any issue. There was no poisonous needles, but it was poison all the same. Blech. When Fitz saw the painting, she thought she would be sick. Her mind rebelled at the idea that such an awful thing could exist. Ew, what is that? Hold on, it was under Lady Ariel's bed. Does that mean... Everything that entered the room of a royal was their possession. No exceptions. So Fitz naturally understood that this belonged to Ariel. Lady Ariel owns this? Huh? It was under the bed, so she was hiding it? Surely not Lady Ariel. Huh? Fitz sat on the floor with feet behind her, holding the picture. Her head was spinning. From behind her, she heard a click. She jumped and spun around, and there was Ariel Anemoy Asra, her dear Ariel, the woman who had rescued her, who looked after her every need, and yet called her not her servant or her slave, but her friend. Ariel stared at Fitz, sitting there, holding the painting with a vacant look on her eyes. So you saw it. Fitz realized that she'd seen something that she wasn't supposed to. If her head had been a little clearer, she would have noticed the hint of a smile playing around the corners of Ariel's mouth. But she was too shocked after the horror that she had seen. Oh no, she thought. Her dear friend had tastes she could never accept. What should she say? What ought she to do? Should she act as though she hadn't seen it? Or should she spurn Ariel? Unable to work out the answer, Fitz froze up. Now Fitz had a certain habit. Rudy. If only Rudy were here, what would he do? When she found herself in a tight spot... Rudy! But Rudy! When she found herself in a tight spot, she liked to think about what her childhood friend Rudius would have done. Rudy would... Her fetish was unconsciously wishing that he would come to save her. What should I do, Rudy? But the Rudy in her mind said nothing. He just patted her on the shoulder, with a warm smile on his 20% more handsome face. What do I do? What? Almost in tears, Sylphie could do nothing but watch as Ariel slowly came towards her. Ariel was then happy that day. Ariel was satisfied. The question is, did she use the toilet when she came out the door? Or did she hear Fitz in there? It's like, I gotta go check that out. Somebody might have checked out that photo already. So dorky. So that's all their fetishes. Luke likes to sleep with anybody with big chests. Ariel likes to be humiliated without trying. And Fitz apparently likes to think of what Rudius would do. Rudius perspective. Just as Fitz found himself in deep doo-doo, Rudius made his own discovery. As he was cleaning the carriage, something came tumbling out of Richard's bag. It was an extremely obscene statue. It wasn't like the figurines that Rudius liked. It looked more like a Dagu clay doll. Dagu? What's a Dagu clay doll? Oh, those. Those, okay. I was like, what? Oh, okay. It looked more like a Dogu clay doll. Yet concealed within it was such obscenity that it even made Rudius cringe. It was like the embodiment of sin and lust itself. Rudius couldn't believe Richard owned such a thing like this, but it had come out of Richard's luggage, so it almost certainly belonged to him. Rudius picked up the statue and examined it closely. Then, he heard a noise behind him. Rudius spun around and found himself face to face with Richard. Something wrong? No. For a few seconds, Rudius stood there frozen until, at last, the tension went out of him. He quietly returned the statue in his hand to where he'd found it, then turned back to Richard. He had a creepily cheerful smile on his face. He kept it in place as he went over to Richard and clapped him on the shoulder. It's okay. I get it. Then, he got out of the carriage and left. Richard was left with a question mark above his head, unable to work out what just happened. What was that about? It hardly needed to be said, but the statue was obviously not Richard's. It had been in the carriage and just happened to get mixed up with his things. That was all. Oh well, Richard said, promptly turning off his hovering question mark. He was used to Rudius' burst of strange behavior. Phew. Rudius left the carriage, then looked up at the clear blue sky. Different strokes for different folks, huh? He said to himself, a sunny smile on his face. In fact, he had a certain bad habit. He tried to understand and accept everyone else's tastes, no matter what they might be. Come to think of it, I wonder what Sylphie's doing right now. Sylphie's happy face hovered transparent in the air before him. Only the heavens know what Sylphie did next as she faced Ariel, fighting back tears. All that could be said for sure was that whatever it was, it did not damage their friendship. Well, obviously, because they went on to coming all the way up there and then all the way to take the throne. That was a fun chapter. I think I just had more fun playing it out. It was one of those ones where it's like, I'm not sure if this is going to be an interesting chapter, but it's just fun. It is fun. And that's that's it. I'm gonna call it there. Fun little set of chapters. I think the most fun was probably around, this last chapter being absolutely dorky. But I did like getting a little bit more insight into at least Kishirika's perspective, going into the whole incident with Laplace. I think that was an interesting kind of look into, again, confirming through her perspective that, yeah, Laplace came there aggressive. And again, that was kind of shocking to see that, because I assumed that was a hallucination that, Bodyguard had. Nope, she was going down. She was about ready to die. So it kind of answers why she loves him so much. I mean, he literally came there when she thought she was going to die. So that makes sense. But no, seeing a little bit more of the adventuring side of Zenith and Paul was really good. And again, I was kind of expecting that would probably hit me pretty bad. But anyways, that's it for this Mushoku Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed this Mushoku Monday. As always, greatly appreciate you guys' support, your kind words, everything you guys do for me. Greatly appreciate. And yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate by the support channel monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships, all that stuff. Thank you. Again, before you leave, hit the like button before you leave. It supports the channel. It's greatly appreciated. But until the next Mushoku Monday, we can dive further into this big, thick boy. Y'all take care. But there was that one moment where she finally kind of showed a little bit of, but then there was that one moment where she finally showed a little bit of that vulnerability. But then there was that finally. The Takaraku Village toughs. Don't ignore trouble. Don't ignore people. The Takaraku Village toughs. That's a Takaraku Village. It was a pretty sketchy. It was a pretty sketchy shop. It was a pretty sketchy shop. Sketchy shop.